Gaming was a lot different in the early 2000s. Maybe you couldn't afford a new PlayStation 2, but you could go to the Game Crazy next to the Hollywood Video and buy a used Nintendo Entertainment System with a selection of loose, boxless cartridges to choose from. So the first game I ever owned and beat was Willow for the NES, a relic from a time when a game based on a movie wasn't necessarily bad and didn't even have to stick to the plot of the movie. Hell, if you play the game and watch the movie, you're basically looking at two extremely different versions of the same story, like an alternate dimension, a Willowverse. Willow the Film is a dark 80s fantasy movie produced by George Lucas and directed by Ron Howard, starring Warwick Davis as the eponymous Willow, husband, father, and aspiring magician, who must leave his safe home to take a magic baby to where it needs to go so that the evil Queen Bavmorda can be defeated. Willow the game is a... Yeah, I've seen some bad Nintendo box art, but this is definitely, in the top 10. This is not Warwick Davis. It looks like Brad Dourif if he was having an allergic reaction to shellfish. The game is about Willow being a prophesized hero who goes around with a sword and shield and beats Bavmorda up himself. The baby's still in the story, but you aren't carrying her around with you. Just as well, because how would you even implement a baby into gameplay? Yeah, it's probably for the best that they didn't do that. The intro explains that there's two spirits ruling over the world, one of the sky and one of the earth. Both spirits sent a sorceress to the earth to be their messengers, but the messenger of the sky, Bavmorda, decided that she wanted to rule everything, so she turned the earth's messenger, Fin Raziel, into an Australian possum, and became an evil queen. The game's manual says that one of the Nelwyn people is prophesied to save the world, and High Aldwin, the local magician, says Willow is the chosen one. So, fittingly, the game starts us out right outside of our house. Zelda came out 3 years before this one, but there's clearly a bit of inspiration here. Willow is different enough to stand out as its own isometric adventure, however. Going into the house restores our hit points and lets Willow see his family. We'll be going to a few different towns on our journey, and each one will have a house to heal at, and NPCs that give us hints at where to go next. By talking to our neighbors, we get the magic acorns that turn things to stone from the movie, and our first sword. With that, we're ready to strike out on our own. This game has levels like an RPG. We start out at 1 with low strength, so pressing A to swing the sword at first feels like swimming through molasses and makes early enemies more challenging. The longsword that we start with has a mastery level of 3, so until we hit level 3, we can't swing it at full speed. You have 2 moves, stabbing and flailing. Our next goal is to reach the village of Dew. To get there, we have to sharpen our teeth on the game's first few enemies. To start with, there are these clear slimes that move unpredictably and sometimes split into 2 smaller jellies. Since we're going to a place called Dew, I used to think these were giant angry dewdrops. I don't think that anymore. They're clearly just slimes. Then there are these wild boar-looking things that I later found out were these dogs from the movie. They can actually spook you if you aren't expecting them. It's good to use the stone acorns on them until your sword gets faster. And lastly, there are these spinning skull heads that are great to farm XP with. So we arrive in Dew. I really like how they make all the areas in this game look distinct, despite their graphical limitations. All the flowers here give the town a nice atmosphere. By talking to the villagers, we find out that they're being harassed by a demon named Bogarda, who's bogarting all the fruit grow in this village, and all their gold and silver, too. According to the locals, Bogarda was the village chief's father before Bavmorda put a curse on him. I'm not sure how this furthers her plan, but hey, people need hobbies. The village chief gives us a heal mace, which is easily the most useful magic in the game, since it lets you heal yourself without going back to a previous checkpoint. So our goal is to kill Bogarda. Since fairies and brownies exist in this story, I'm pretty sure Bogarda's name comes from the word bogart. On our way here, we run into these freakish bug monsters. The manual doesn't say what they are, and I've heard people call them gargoyles, but I don't really see a resemblance. I always thought that they looked like giant humanoid mosquitoes. Fighting them is basically pointless, because they just buzz around and disappear after a few seconds. We arrive at the first dungeon, and it's being guarded by a talking skeleton. He works for Bogarda, and says he won't let us in unless we find a golden statue that the villagers hid from his boss. On the way to the statue, we run into the game's first giant enemy, this muscular snake person who spits fireballs at us. We'll be seeing a lot more of these guys, and the game is even nice enough to warn us where the next one is. After we beat him, we find the game's first treasure chest. Here we find the gold statue, as well as the Light of Life, which heals us. Certain treasure chests will have this. It's like an extra reward that makes the game less frustrating. So we bring the statue to the bony bouncer, and he says he'll let us in, but we're only allowed to give Bogarda the gold and leave. We'll give it to him, alright. So we kill some bats and find a sword upgrade that heals us, which we'll need since if you die inside a dungeon, you respawn at the last checkpoint you were at, in this case Dew. All the items you found in the dungeon will reset back to their original positions, and you lose any experience points you had collected towards your next level. Kinda like Dark Souls a little bit. We swatted a giant fly, and then we meet Bogarda. He thinks it's absolutely hilarious that we're here to fight him, but we'll have the last laugh. As you can see, the boss fights look a lot different than regular combat. You get boxed in so you can't run away, and your HUD changes from a hit point number to a life bar, and by the size of mine, we can tell I definitely over-leveled for this fight, so Bogarda dies really fast. It looks like he's human again. So apparently getting stabbed a lot was the way to dispel this curse. The man thanks us for saving him, and tells us to fight for peace. He also teaches us the spell Flowing Fire. You got it, buddy. In the name of peace, I will burn my enemies alive. He gives us our next objective, to go to Lake Chief, where we can speak with someone who is actually in the movie, the fairy Sherlindra. So we head past due through this rocky mountain area, and we fight these gorilla trolls, and we meet Kchill, this thing. He's a creature called a nail, a large white squirrel with horns and pointy teeth. He says since we beat Bogarda, the curse on this bridge is broken, and he can return to his home east of Lake Chief. And we're gonna need to remember that he said that. So we cross the groovy bridge, and we find Frangine and Rule, the brownies from the movie. They know where Sherlindra is, and they say that we need to go through Death Forest to the north and find a cave where a dragon named Matanda lives. And they want us to slay the dragon and bring them his crystal, and then they'll tell us? These two are sus, but it's the only way forward, so we go. Immediately, we learn why it's called Death Forest, as the trees come to life and spit fireballs at us. We also find this old lady who lives all the way out here that can heal us. She says her pet named Poe is missing and gives us medicinal herbs to give to him if we see him. You know, being a prophesized hero is starting to seem like being a glorified errand boy. On the road to Matanda's cave, we run into the other type of giant monster, this red guy with 3 arms. They're as easy to kill as the snake dudes. We arrive at Matanda's cave, and when I first played this at age 7, I got super lost to the point where I needed to start drawing maps to find my way. Now, though, I just have to go to GameFAQs. Shout out to GameFAQs user Fastakiller and Starfighter76 for posting all these. Inside the Dragon's Cave, we find new equipment and also a motherfucking pterodactyl. This is Poe. He says he hates living in Death Forest and came here to hang out, but Matanda is senile and paranoid that everyone wants to steal his crystal, so he got all huffy and damaged Poe's feathers. So either they knew that dinosaurs had feathers way back then, or he isn't a dinosaur. We give him those dank herbs, and he gives us an ocarina to call him whenever we're outside, making him our fast travel system. There's a lot of skeletons with these annoying shields that I decided not to even bother with. They'll block you from going to the next screen, so I learned to pull them forward, tank a few hits, and run behind them. It's not heroic, but it is efficient. The other form of undead in this cave are ghosts, certain enemies that can only be damaged by magic, so our sword is useless for now, and it's better to just run. Eventually, we find Matanda. And in a trope subversion, we don't actually kill him, or even fight him at all. He's just old and tired, and this crystal ball is a red herring. We don't actually need it. Frangine and Rule just wanted to trick us into stealing it for them. So he gives us the Thieves' Bracelet in exchange for leaving him alone. Now this seems like a dead end, but walking back to the cave entrance with the bracelet makes this wall disappear, which takes us to exactly where we need to be. Sherlindra arrives to greet us, looking a bit unusual. This 8-bit render is clearly supposed to be her head and shoulders with all that wispy fabric wrapped around her, but I can't unsee that it looks like a mountain slope with a woman's head growing out of it. I'm always hyped to see a fairy in a game, though. She gives us a legendary magic cane that, once it reaches its full potential, will be the beginning of the end for all wicked beings. Sherry, did you just give me a WMD? She tells us to head north, and then we're off to meet the possum. So we head north and find a sword called the Devil Eye. It's super heavy and doesn't work on most enemies. This is what we're supposed to use on the ghost-type monsters that our other swords won't work on. But we won't be strong enough to use it at full speed for a while. Further ahead, we find an 8-bit Val Kilmer. This is Mad Mardigan. He's been captured, only instead of being in a huge cage at the crossroads, they just chained up his hands and feet and left him to sit here. He asks us to find the key that his captors just hid in the woods somewhere. So we find it, and he gives us his useless necklace, which the game makes sure to point out is made of poor quality glass, and it doesn't do anything. We move ahead and realize that while the Devil Eye will work on ghosts, it won't work on any living enemies. Confusingly, this includes the skeletons, but I guess they're mostly solid material. This sword is for spirits only. One annoying thing is that due to hardware limitations, the treasure chests only have one sprite, so they don't look empty after you've taken the item in them. The original Final Fantasy had the same problem. It can make backtracking a bit confusing sometimes as you're unable to tell if the chest has something in it or not. We move forward and find a checkpoint. This tavern, where I can't help but notice, unlike in the movie, every NPC in the game is either helpful or polite to Willow. We don't even get called a peck once. We get healed, and we also get told what to do next. This guy at the bar tells us that there's a cave ahead with treasure in it that's haunted by a ghost that kills anyone who goes near it. According to legend, her lover died while trying to get the treasure for her, and now she haunts the cave where it happened. Mad Mardigan is also at the bar, and he's much nicer than in the movie. He actually thanks us for saving him, and further explains that he was minding his own business when Sorsha, Bavmorda's daughter, arrested him for no reason. I'm not sure I believe that. He also warns us that we can't go any further without crossing the lake, but instead of a boat, we need to find a waka seed?
Brother.
That'll let us breathe underwater. The only creatures who have them are nails, which are thought to be mythical. Okay, now, stop, pop quiz. Did anybody remember where that little dude said he lived? Because I didn't. I had to go back and look at my recording. He's east of Lake Chief. This random old lady outside the bar tells us that Bavmorda blocked all paths to the two towers to the east, so she must not want anyone to find whatever is there. It happens that the haunted cave is the road to the towers, so we need to find Chill to move forward. But before we go there, we also take a detour to the old man back in Dew, who asked for some dragon scales. So we call our new friend Poe, who I was very disappointed to discover wasn't in the movie. I haven't seen the Disney Plus series though, so he might be in that. The old man makes us a sword and shield out of the scales, and then we meet up with the nail. He just gives us the waka seed, no questions asked, and tells us to take care.
Brother.
Crossing the lake is really cool. It's pretty unimpressive by today's standards, but for its own time it was neat. Once we get to the other side of the lake, we meet Finn Raziel, the possum from the intro. She's been expecting us, and asked us to change her back to human form. Just like in the film, though, we aren't able to do it right away. And going into and out of the cave will let you turn her into every animal from the movie. A crow, then a goat, then an ostrich, and a tiger. I can't help but wonder why we don't let her stay a tiger, at least until Bavmorda is killed. Tigers are huge and strong, it's gotta be way more useful than an old lady. How cool would it be to storm Castle Nockmar on Tigerback? Further ahead, we end up in that haunted cave we were warned about, and we find the spell Fleet, which will let us warp out of dungeons, which is super useful. Ahead, the road is blocked by some soldiers, like the old lady said. Oh crap, this is Sorsha, daughter of the great Queen Bavmorda. She asks us if we've seen Mad Mardigan. No, I can't say that I have. We go back into the haunted cave, which is actually multiple caves on an island. We deal with ghosts, bugs, bats, these annoying crabs and turtle shells, skeletons, and eventually... Oh wow, this is easily one of my favorite pieces of music on the original Nintendo ever. It's simple but really enchanting. This theme belongs to Xena the ghost. She says she's looking for the spirit of her lover, who must be hiding from her, and gives us her flute. From here, we go backwards a bit towards the area's boss. As a beginner's trap, it's actually possible to wander in here without meeting Xena first, which will put you into an unwinnable fight against this boss. His name is Moose, and he looks a lot like Lavos from Chrono Trigger. He seems difficult until you realize he always follows a basic pattern. You hit him once, then he raises his shields and fires 7 shots at us. So we hit him, count to 7, and repeats. The hard shell of the boss broke open, and Xena's ghost boyfriend was inside of it. Her flute then starts playing by itself, which means the music is diegetic. Cool. And as the couple is reunited, the melody turns into a harmony. That's good sound design. Moose explains that Bavmorda cursed him and left him here to guard this one specific door in this cave forever, and he couldn't leave because he was trapped in the form of a hideous monster. Now that he's free, the two embrace and move on to a better place. However, after they leave, we find that Moose left a handwritten note for us. How did he write it? It's kind of like a last will and testament. He says Bavmorda is afraid of the power of the two spirits and just people. That is, people who uphold justice. He also leaves us the instructions for the magic spell Bombard. Moose was a simple man. He believed in love, justice, and explosions. Exiting the cave and moving forward, we come to the two towers on a mountain path with a house-like building in the middle. Here we find Alora Danan, the baby from the movie, being taken care of by some random lady. The lady tells us that Finn Raziel's prophecy said we'd come here, and that we need to meet with both the Earth Spirit and the Sky Spirit, who are waiting for us at the top of the towers. Climbing up the first tower is really cool. The higher you get, the more floors you can see beneath you, and the way these torches light up as you pass by is really neat. At the top, we meet a blue old man who's been inhabited by the Sky Spirit. He tells us that it's his fault Bavmorda was placed in this world, and that she's made his voice inaudible to others and begun trying to conquer the world. We knew this already because it was in the game's intro, but maybe Willow didn't. He gives us a blue crystal and tells us to go up the other tower. The Earth Tower isn't as cool, the torches don't light up, and the color scheme is almost sickly in comparison to the other one. At the top, we meet a red old man who's possessed by the Earth Spirit. Again, he tells us what we already know. The Earth Spirit placed Fin Raziel on this Earth, and Bavmorda has confined her powers. He gives us a red crystal. We take both crystals to the magic baby, and her caretaker declares that the baby will overthrow all evil entities and turn their existence into nothing. Okay, that's not terrifying at all. She also gives us the Crest of the Spirits. This is what replaces the baby as the MacGuffin that Bavmorda needs to destroy. I think because in the movie it was clear that Bavmorda was gonna try and sacrifice the baby, and Nintendo would not have been okay with that in one of their games in the 1980s. So as a form of censorship, I think they shift the focus to this Crest of the Spirits. If it's ever destroyed by Bavmorda, the power of the spirits will disappear, and Bavmorda will live forever. So we continue along mountain paths and find the monster's bone, which will let us disguise ourselves as a monster. For the most part, the landscape looks very samey. We don't see any... You know, Death Forest was one thing, but I don't think anything could have prepared me to deal with the walls themselves sprouting faces and spitting fire at me. We eventually find another old lady living way out in the middle of nowhere. She doesn't know how to get to Bavmorda's castle, but she teaches us the most powerful spell in the game, Thunder, for free. She also heals us, and this is a checkpoint. We come to the point where I can disguise myself as a monster to avoid triggering the trapped ground, but I thought I was just supposed to walk around them because I didn't realize being a monster wouldn't trigger them. So I'm able to use healing to tank the damage. I shouldn't have been able to get away with doing this in the most brain-dead way possible, but here I am. All there is in the cave is an old guy who tells us about the kingdom of Tir-Asleen, which is where we need to go. He says that according to legend, a brave man would appear and save the world, and that he awaits that day. Dude, that's me. He doesn't do anything yet. Figuring out what to do next, we hit level 13, which is where we need to be to turn Fin Raziel back into a human. So we do that. She upgrades our magic cane and tells us that we are the one who will defeat Bavmorda. This is necessary to beat the final boss, but it's not the progress I was looking for. Eventually, I find my way back to where the Thunder Lady lives, because to the north of her house is the best healing item in the game, the Heal Ball. The treasure chest blocks us from getting into the cave, though. And fun fact, you can kill the wall monster with lightning, so it turns out you're supposed to go through the red cave, where the Tir-Asleen guy is, to the other side, and walk along the path, avoiding the falling boulders until you get to a purple cave. In here, you'll find, oh, that's not Falco, a walking, talking Birdman who is most certainly not in the movie. He looks different in each of his sprites. On the map, he's like a buff parrot. His portrait looks the best and actually resembles an eagle, but best of all is his mini sprite. He looks like Gonzo with a beard. He says his name is Adik. His country was burned by Bavmorda, so all the eagle people have scattered, and he and his brother Abang have been separated. He wants me to give his brother the wing sword if we see him, and he doesn't seem to mind if we use it ourselves along the way. It's much weaker than the weapons we already have, though. We also find an old lady in this cave, and she tells us the bridge is cursed and can't be crossed, so no one can get to Tir-Asleen. Yes, ma'am, I noticed because when I approached it, it started doing the worm at me. For some reason, talking to this old lady triggers the man in the red cave to be useful. Now talking to him will do nothing, because I look like a blob of jello. Okay, take two. Now talking to him will get us the witch's shoes that will let us get to Tir-Asleen. The town is huge, but mostly deserted, just like in the movie. There's only 2 people living in here out of all the empty houses. One is this lady who hits us with the I know nothing line, but clarifies that she's afraid Bavmorda will find out someone still lives in the town and attack again. She directs us to the Rocky Mountain east of the castle to the north, where we can find a creepy old lady who's been up there since she was saved by Eric, a guy from the movie. So she actually did know a lot of things. The only other person in this town is this guy. He'll let us stay at his house because we're here to kill Bavmorda. What a nice dude. Finally, someone besides the lady who wrote the prophecy believes in us, so we go looking for the old woman and get to a point where the higher we climb, the darker it gets, and she actually has a distinct sprite from the other old lady NPCs we've met so far. Castle Nockmar is looming in the background and it looks super cool. She tells us that there's no reason for us to go to the castle because the hero of the prophecy will take care of it. I am trying to. For some reason, talking to her here will cause the castle of Tir-Asleen to become unlocked. It's important to note that this is a different castle than Castle Nockmar. There's 2 castle dungeons in this game, and they put them both at the end. In here, we find Eric from the movie. He says there's a monster named Eberisk in the next room, but he's too weak to fight it. I guess he hasn't been leveling up. He gives us the Kaiser Sword. The boss is stupidly easy, and I don't think its face rendered correctly. Let's check out its sprite sheet. Oh yeah, he's supposed to look like this. So we walk into the next room after killing the boss, and we've been captured? So before I saw the movie, I thought Eric was a bad guy who just tricked me and led me into a trap, but he was being sincere back there. The way the music stops is creepy, too. Kale appears, who it turns out is not a big skeleton. He's just wearing a mask. He taunts us for falling into this trap, and takes the crest of the spirit so Bavmorda can destroy it, and leaves us to rot in jail forever. Also, Madmartigan is here. I skipped over this, but if you go back to the tavern after making progress, the ghost story guy will imply that Madmartigan got drunk, mumbled something about going to kill Bavmorda, and left. So that's how he ended up here. He tells us that Eric told him about a cave around Tir Asleen that connects directly to Castle Nockmaar, but nothing can be done with that information now. The conversation music doesn't even play. All hope seems lost until... It's Frangine and Rule, the brownies who tried to trick us into fighting a dragon earlier. They're here to break us out of jail. They also give us the Powder of Unrequited Love, which is basically a drug that makes people temporarily fall in love in the movie, which has some unintentionally horrific implications, so in the game, they've sanitized it to be a magic powder that will give anyone who touches it the heart of justice. So we head to the cave. You can try to go here before Tir Asleen Castle, but to prevent you from sequence breaking the story, the devs just put an empty treasure chest in front of the door. This time, Frangine and Rule meet us outside and tell us to be careful. This is the last cave dungeon, and in it we find the best shield, but you wouldn't know that because the description says it's cursed by anger and hatred. When I equipped it, I noticed that my magic points were going down. This was actually because these ghostly amoeba-looking enemies will steal your magic points to split into copies of themselves. But I thought it was the shield because it said it was cursed. On the way out of the cave, we get a gauntlet of all the big enemies that the game can throw at us, and it's really satisfying to now be able to cut them down without much trouble, considering that at the start of the game, we could barely swing a sword. We finally climb our way up to where the mountains become blue, and we ascend the stairs to the final dungeon, Castle Nockmaar. It's guarded by one person of indeterminate gender who tells us to go away because someone like us doesn't belong there, but if I look like an evil monster, they'll let me in. Oh no, they're just terrified. He just left. The awesomeness of this moment is diminished by the fact that I'm walking around looking like orange jello. So in here, we have those pig zombies, and the other bird brother. This is a Bang, and he doesn't take his sword back. Instead, he puts his strength into it, so now we can use it at full power, making it the best sword in the game. He also tells us that the rest of the castle is locked, and that the creepy old lady at the top of the hill has the key. If you go looking for her on the mountaintop where she was before, you won't find her there, though. Now she's in a house around the bottom of Castle Tir Asleen. She gives us the key to Tir Asleen, so we can give it to Eric. Yeah, no, I'm keeping it, and I'm going to stick it in Bavmorda's eye. Let's go. One last flight with my dinosaur friend. We storm the castle, and it's filled with ghosts and armored soldiers, but you need to save a lot of MP for the fight with Bavmorda, so it's better to avoid most of the enemies. Eventually, we find Madmartigan, and he's been captured again, making that 3 times. He really doesn't do anything at all in this game. In the movie, he actually proves himself to be a talented swordsman by this point. I checked, and he does so little in the game. They never even bothered to make a sprite of him standing up. He only has sitting poses. Sorcia's here too again, and she hilariously introduces herself as Sorcia, daughter of the great Bavmorda. Yes, we know who you are. She says we can't escape anymore, and in some funny, never-say-die form of censorship, she tells us to go to blazes. Willow throws the love powder at her to make her chill the hell out, but instead it hits Madmartigan. Madmartigan, now high as a kite, then gives a soliloquy about how beautiful Sorcia is, and tells her that she's being deceived by the forces of evil, and actually her eyes are overflowing with justice and hope. And he says that he doesn't believe in the prophecy, that there is no one chosen hero, and that instead every creature living in the world is it. He actually seems to start to ramble a bit because he decides to list every fantasy race in the game. I especially like how he specifies the Eagle Clan, you know, with the wings. But then he hits me with, all are living to their fullest, and the effort put forth into living is the greatest strength in this world. This somehow manages to convince Sorcia, who has decided to have all her character development right now. Further in, we run into Kale. Yeah, we're gonna fight him. He says we're too late, that Bavmorda has the crest, and he's actually a challenging boss. You can't just exploit positioning and mash A to beat him like the other ones. You need to stay to the right of his sprite, but if you approach him from the side, he'll run into you until you die. Now, we're on the castle roof in the final stretch. All the orange guards are trying to stop us, but they can't, and we reach Bavmorda. The first phase of her fight is impossible if you don't have enough magic points, so the real challenge of the fight is getting here at all without spending it, because the magic cane is the only weapon that works here, and it costs 12 MP per shot. She normally runs around and spreads fireballs, but I got her stuck in this corner. After we knock her down a peg, we get the Crest of the Spirits. The floor turns into fire, and we let her run into our sword until she dies. It's unclear if we straight up killed her, or if she's returning to the realm where the spirits sent her from. The skies brighten up, and Elora Danon, the infant, is now chosen as the queen. Hopefully this is after she grew up a bit. And we get to the credits. It used to be really common for game developers to not use their real names in the credits for the game, so this game was brought to us by AK, David Bowie, Mo, Manashi, Yuki Nagineko, Tompon, Fishman, Tall Knob, Harumi, Hardy J, and Maki-chan. All in all, this game isn't particularly great or even very impressive by today's standards, but it's a fun little adventure. Welcome to the end screen. Thank you for sticking around this long despite my audio quality. I'm looking into upgrading my mic, but I'm not sure what model to commit to yet. This is the first long-form, highly edited video I've ever made, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. Whether you loved it or hated it, let me know in the comment section below. Also, the spooky season is coming up, and that means spooky games. I haven't decided what I'll be playing yet this fall, so any suggestions for horror-themed games are more than welcome. Lastly, I'm sure you can tell that this video is not sponsored. Tiny channels like mine tend to live and die by viewer engagement, so if you could click on the thumbs to let the algorithm know what you think, that would be appreciated. I hope to see you next time. This is Blue, signing off.